Welcome back to week 2 of my weight loss and recovery journey. I started this journey at 350 pounds, and after losing another 11 pounds this week, I'm now down to 332 pounds. That brings my total loss to 18 pounds in just 2 weeks. But this journey is about more than the number on the scale. I'm also continuing to work on my recovery, mobility, nutrition, and the everyday habits that are helping me move forward. So let's take a look at how week 2 went. Week 2 brought another big change on the scale, but it also had its share of ups and downs. I finished the week down another 11 pounds. I averaged 2,040 calories and 167 grams of protein per day, kept my hydration between 140 and 170 ounces a day, and averaged 7 hours and 37 minutes of sleep. This was my second week at the 2.5 milligram dose. GI side effects were still the biggest challenge. Diarrhea reached a 5 out of 10 early in the week, improved afterward, but then returned at a 6 out of 10, before beginning to settle again by the end of the week. Outside of the medication side effects, I continued seeing progress in my recovery. I was using my walker more around the house for short distances, and continuing to work on my mobility. Overall, week 2 felt like improvement over my new normal. The scale was moving, my mobility was improving, and I kept focusing on calories, protein, hydration, physical therapy, and simply continuing the process. This was my second week taking Zepbound at the 2.5 milligram dose, and this week I continued tracking my estimated medication levels alongside my symptoms. My estimated level started at 1.64 milligrams on day 1, peaked at 2.70 milligrams on day 2, and then gradually declined through the rest of the week, ending at 1.28 milligrams on day 7. My GI symptoms continued to fluctuate. Diarrhea reached 5 out of 10 on day 2, improved afterward, but returned at 6 out of 10 on day 6. Food noise remained low when I recorded it, and by the end of day 7, things were beginning to improve again. These medication levels are only estimates and aren't actual blood level measurements, but tracking them alongside my symptoms gives me another way to look at how my experience changes throughout each week. Nutrition looked quite a bit different in week 2. I averaged 2,040 calories per day, which was higher than week 1, while my average protein also increased to 167 grams per day. Looking at the daily numbers, my highest calorie day was day 2 at 2,438 calories, while my highest protein day was day 3 at 207 grams. Across the full week, my calories ranged from 1,498 to 2,438, and protein ranged from 120 to 207 grams per day. For hydration, I continued drinking roughly 140 to 170 ounces of water per day. Food-wise, I continued using things like a meal replacement shake for breakfast, along with meals such as chicken salad and PB&J, plus meat sticks for snacks. The biggest thing I noticed is that both my calories and protein increased compared with week 1. I'm not trying to make every day perfect. I'm tracking what I actually eat and using those numbers to keep building better habits as the journey continues. Physical therapy and recovery continued to be a major part of week 2. I completed 2 physical therapy sessions, and I also kept up with my indoor bike work, doing 30-minute sessions each day. I use a floor pedal bike that lets me roll my wheelchair right up to the pedals and continue working on my legs and endurance. I also use resistance bands every week to work my legs and help maintain muscle tone. This week's featured exercise is the seated knee extension. Starting with my knee bent, I extend my lower leg against the resistance of the band and then bring it back under control. This targets the quadriceps and is part of the leg strength work I'm doing. The biggest progress for me this week wasn't just during physical therapy. I continued walking more around the house when I was able to, and I found myself using the walker more than the wheelchair. Recovery is still a long process, but compared with what had started feeling like my new normal, I felt like I was continuing to make progress. For me, it's about staying consistent. Every session, every rep, and every small step forward counts. Week 2 was another week where the little things really started adding up. I stayed focused on my nutrition, physical therapy, hydration, and recovery. My calories were higher overall this week, but I also increased my protein intake and continued trying to keep my meals simple. Hydration remained a big priority. My goal is roughly half my body weight in ounces of water, and this week I was drinking between 140 and 170 ounces per day. I completed 2 physical therapy sessions, kept up with my 30-minute indoor bike sessions every day, and continued working with resistance bands. One of the biggest lifestyle changes this week was movement around the house. I was using my walker more instead of relying on the wheelchair, walking more whenever I was able, and even using the walker to get to and from the shower. Rest is still an important part of recovery too. According to my Apple Health data, I averaged 7 hours and 37 minutes of sleep per night this week. More than anything, week 2 reinforced something I'm trying to keep in mind throughout this entire journey. Progress isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent. Going into week 3, that's the plan. Keep working on nutrition, hydration, physical therapy, and mobility, and just keep stacking those small wins. One day, one choice, one step forward. Week 2 is officially in the books, and this was another big week in my journey. I lost 11 pounds this week, bringing me to 18 pounds down total from where I started. Nutrition looked a little different this week. I ate more calories overall, while also increasing my protein intake and continuing to keep my meals fairly simple. Hydration remained a major focus. I drank between 140 and 170 ounces of water per day, while continuing to work toward my goal of roughly half my body weight in ounces. Recovery also kept moving forward. I completed 2 physical therapy sessions, did 30 minutes on the indoor bike every day, and continued using my walker more, instead of relying as much on the wheelchair around the house. That mobility progress was probably my biggest highlight of week 2. I was walking more when I was able, and even using the walker to get to and from the shower. My Apple Health sleep average came in at 7 hours and 37 minutes per night, and while the GI symptoms definitely weren't gone this week, they did improve by the end of the week. If there's one thing I'm taking away from week 2, it's this: progress isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent. Going into week 3, I want to keep building on what's working: nutrition, protein, hydration, physical therapy, the bike, and especially continuing to use the walker and build my strength and endurance. One day, one choice, one step forward. And that wraps up week 2 of my journey dashboard. I'll be back next week to see where all of these small steps take me. If you've stayed around this long, don't forget to like and subscribe for next week's update.